Hello everyone. In this video I would like to show you my 5th Leaguestarter build for the upcoming Delirium League, which is a Bladestorm Berserker. I know that the patch notes aren't out yet, but I don't want to rush making build guides in the last 2 days I'll have before the league starts, so I'm making these guides early. If there's any changes with this build, I will mention it in the description and also change the PoE accordingly. Bex said that there aren't any sweeping changes in terms of balance with the new patch, so these builds will most likely function more or less the same, even if there are minor changes. This build is an excellent league starter because you can do pretty much all the content in the game with fairly generic and easy to get gear. For my weapon I'm using a Terminus Est, which is a 1 chaos sword, and other than the Terminus Est we have 2 more unique items in the build, and those are Belly of the Beast and Belt of the Deceiver, both of which will be available very early in the league. Rest of my gear is fairly typical and should be attainable within the first week. This character has an incredible amount of room for improvement as well. And if you are willing to spend more money on the character, I will talk about some of your stronger options. The PoE for this character will be in the description with some notes. And if you are interested in seeing more build guides for the upcoming Delirium League, you can check out my channel. And I will also leave some links in the description. I will quickly finish this map, show you like the metamorph kill and whatnot, and then I will talk about the gear. Okay, so let's quickly go over the gear. We are using 3 unique items and all of them are pretty cheap. For my weapon I'm using a Terminus Est. As you can see, it has like pretty solid base physical damage, crit chance, attack speed. It gives you some accuracy, and most importantly it will let you generate frenzy charges against bosses, which is pretty big for damage. While you're leveling, to like find weapon upgrades as you're leveling, you can do this vendor recipe. You can sell a weapon and either a magic or a rare rustic sash and a blacksmith whetstone. This will give you that same weapon with the increased physical damage mod, as you can see, and if you use a rare rustic sash instead of a magic one, the mod will be stronger. So while you're leveling, you can do this vendor recipe. Look out for like essences, and then you can use essences on regular rustic sashes to get like a rare one, and then do this vendor recipe to get a pretty solid weapon. For the other 2 unique items, we are using a Belt of the Deceiver. This will give you some damage, life, resistances, and most importantly it will intimidate nearby enemies, and intimidate is like a 10% more damage boost. These belts are pretty common, so as the league progresses you can find some cool implicits like attack speed and crit chance and crit multi, so keep an eye out for those implicits. And for the final unique of the build, I'm using a Belly of the Beast. This gives you a lot of life and resistances. Early in the league, until you can find one of these, you can farm the humility cards and blood aqueducts and get yourself a tabula rasa. And for the late league, like if you want to min-max the character, you can go for like a crit chest in here or the explosion chest. There's quite a bit of things you can go for, it's up to your preference. For your jewelry, your rings and your amulet, you're looking for some life, physical damage to attacks and resistances. And I would also recommend looking for intelligence on some of your gear, because intelligence will help you with some gems, like save you some points in the passive tree. For late game, like if you want to min-max the character, you can go for like a Mark of the Elder setup with a Shaper ring in your other ring. But this will require some like pretty good gear to cap your resistances, so keep that in mind. For your boots, I would recommend going for Tailwind boots. The nice thing about this build is that you don't need to look for movement speed on your boots, because we are playing a Berserker. And as a Berserker, you will have a lot of attack speed and you can leap around all the time. But you don't have to actually move the character. So just look for the Tailwind mod and maybe an open prefix so that you can craft life. Or look for Tailwind and life. The Tailwind mod can be found on Hunter influenced boots that are item level 75 or higher. For your gloves and your helmet, you're looking for a lot of life and resistances. You can also get like attack speed and physical damage to attacks on your gloves for some extra damage. Late game, I would recommend going for Hands of the High Templar with that 3rd implicit, the vulnerability on hit. This will be a pretty big quality of life and damage boost while you're mapping. And for the helmet, you can go for an Abyssus if you want to like go crazy with the build. But since we are taking aspect of Carnage as well, the Abyssus will make you pretty squishy, so I really wouldn't recommend going for this. Early in the league, just look for like a Belt of the Deceiver as fast as you can. You can probably find one as you're leveling too. And then like go for the Terminus Est, and you can fill out the rest of the gear. So that's it about the gear. Okay, so for flasks, Divine Knife Flask of Staunching for the bleed removal, Diamond Flask of Heat for the freeze removal, Lion's Roar will give you a lot of damage and survivability, so I would recommend going for this whenever you can. Silver Flask of Warding for the curse removal, and finally a Basalt Flask of Exploration for some extra attack speed and the physical damage mitigation. Until you get to a point where your like Leaf Slam feels pretty smooth, I would recommend using a Quicksilver instead of the Basalt Flask. And when you get like the Tailwind mod and maybe some attack speed on the passive tree, you can take out the Quicksilver and then use a Basalt Flask. So that's all the flasks. Okay, so for gems, we are linking our Bladestorm with Impale. close combat, fortify, brutality, and then finally pulverize. For bosses, you will swap out the pulverize for melee physical damage for like a little bit of extra damage boost. And then close combat is like the perfect gem for this playstyle, because while you're mapping, you will be using your Bladestorm once and then leaping around. This gem will make your playstyle incredibly smooth. Bladestorm won't be available until level 28, so until that point you can level with Cleave and then Ancestral Protector until level 12. At level 12 you can either use Thunder or Shattering Steel, depends on what you want. For like support gems early on, most of this stuff won't be available until later on, so for support gems you can use Maim, Ruthless, and then melee physical damage. I would recommend you grabbing close combat at level 18, because as I've said earlier, this will make your like leap slam incredibly smooth. So while you're leveling, definitely make advantage of this gem. While you're leveling, your 4-link for Bladestorm will look something like this: Bladestorm, Impale, Close Combat, and then Fortify. For our other gems, we have a Ball Ancestral Warchief. It's linked with Brutality, Ruthless, Maim, and then finally melee physical damage. We have a Leap Slam setup. It's linked with faster attacks, Falling Strike, and then Blood Magic. Blood Magic is so that you don't run out of mana when you're leaping around the map. For our auras, we are using a Pride, Blood and Sand, Dread Banner, and finally a low level Precision. Once you have access to an item, you can drop the Precision and use a Herald of Purity, which will give you more damage. I'm using a vulnerability linked with Trap, because the nice thing about this is that you can throw the trap before encounters like Cyrus phases, Conquerors, and you won't have to like self-cast the Cursed. So it's a bit of a quality of life boost. You can just like self-cast the Cursed if you want. I'm also using a Val Clarity. This is nice because this will make it so that your skills cost no mana during the effect, and you can use this before like Conquerors, and this will allow you to like spam your Bladestorms and get your Bladestorms up. Blood Rage for some extra attack speed. The Frenzy Charge generation doesn't matter too much because we have the Terminus Est, and then finally an Enduring Cry for like the Endurance Charge generation. So that's all the gems. Okay, so for the passive tree, we are playing a Berserker. As a Berserker, you get a lot of attack speed from these two nodes, which is amazing because we are using a two-handed melee weapon. So getting the attack speed is definitely nice. This will make it so that your war cries recover 25% life, and you can like use your war cries whenever you want. So it's basically infinite life and mana sustain. This is definitely nice against bosses like Cyrus. On top of that, it will give you some attack speed and damage. So this node is amazing. And finally, we are using Aspect of Carnage. Once again, an amazing node for damage, but I've also increased the damage you take. But it doesn't matter too much in the end because we have quite a bit of defensive layers in the build. Like we are getting some Fortify effect in here. Fortify is in our main 6-link, so it's up all the time. We have a Lion's Roar and a Basalt Flask for like the physical damage mitigation, and we are getting a lot of armor from the gear. You can use your Dread Banner for the Fortify effectiveness, Enduring Cry for like the endurance charges, and Bladestorm as a skill is pretty defensive because you can get your Bladestorms up, your Warchief up, and then leave Slime away, and the monsters will die. So it's a pretty defensive skill as well. So like the 10% increased damage taken doesn't really matter too much in the end. For your jewels, there's quite a bit of things you can get, like physical damage, attack speed with swords, like melee crit multi, global crit multi. These are basically the things you're looking for in a jewel. Other than that, the passive tree is fairly typical. It's like a typical crit sword impale passive tree. We're getting some impale from here and here, like impale chance to have like 100% chance to impale on hit. In terms of progression, while you're leveling, you want to start out by grabbing the damage nodes in here. Like don't grab the life nodes because that's gonna make it slower for you. Grab Butchery. From that point on, go for like the Art of the Gladiator and Destroyer in here, like the duelist starting area at 25 points. 45 points, you'll be investing more into like generic physical damage, attack speed, impale stuff. Going for like sword nodes early on might not be a good idea because you don't really know what kind of weapons you're gonna get, and going with the flow is like your best bet for early leveling stages. After that point, you'll be investing more into sword nodes, so craft your weapons if you like need to. We're getting some sword stuff in here, getting the sword damage in here and here. And for like getting crit early on is also not a good idea, so save the crit nodes for last. Like after this point, you'll be going for like the crit nodes. Grab the crit in here, here. Go for like these sword nodes in here, and you can fill out the rest of the tree. In terms of ascendancy progression, I would recommend grabbing Aspect of Carnage first. That 40% more damage will definitely make your leveling process smoother. The 10% increased damage taken will make you a bit squishy, but I mean, doesn't matter too much in the end if you die a couple of times while you're leveling. This is not meant to be a hardcore character. Grab Warbringer second because you're not going to have a lot of crit chance while you're leveling up the character. So going for this is probably your best bet. And then grab the Blizz charges last from your Uber Lab. Anointment options, Assassination is your best bet for damage, but it requires a golden oil, so early on you can go for something like Blade Dancer as well. And also one more thing to keep in mind, if you have like better gear than me and you are able to cap your accuracy without this, I would recommend dropping these 3 points. and then going for this. I'm just taking this to have like 100% hit chance, so make sure that you're capping your chance to hit first, and then if you do, like, you can drop this. Okay, so I guess that's gonna be it for this character. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. I would really appreciate that. I stream on twitch.tv/orveorgul, and even though I haven't been able to stream lately, like due to real life stuff, I'll be streaming quite a bit for like the upcoming league. So if you have like any questions you want to ask me, you want to come chill with me, feel free to stop by. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one.